This July 21st, 2025 meeting of the Worcester Conservation Commission is now called to order. My name is Diane Frattoni, and I'll be chairing this meeting. As part of this meeting, we will be holding hearings under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and regulations and the City of Worcester Wetlands Protection Ordinance and regulations. The commissioners are volunteers who serve to enforce these laws and regulations to protect specific values identified as being important to Massachusetts and the City of Worcester. Commission decisions are based on these laws and regulations and are not arbitrary or based on personal likes or dislikes. It is important to the Commission that these hearings are held in a fair and equitable way for all parties involved. This requires that discussion take place in a civil manner and that every individual in this meeting is treated respectfully. To facilitate this, the hearings take place in the order they are listed on the agenda, which is available by the door and online. First, the applicant will present an overview of the project to the Commission. Next, staff will provide comments on the proposed work. Then the Commission will direct any questions it has to the applicant or staff. After the Commission is done questioning the applicant, the floor will be open to the public. Comments and questions must be directed to the chairperson, not to the applicant or their representative, and they must pertain to the regulations that the Commission oversees. For example, although you might have concerns over the traffic resulting from a particular project, the Conservation Commission does not regulate traffic, so traffic concerns will not be discussed in the meeting. Please note that while new points will be given ample time to present, repetitive comments will be cut short in the interest of having all parties be given an opportunity to speak. We ask that all applicants and members of the public please state their name and city or town of residence for the record. To manage remote participation during our hybrid meetings and prevent disruptions, all participants are automatically blocked from unmuting themselves, turning on their video, or sending chat messages. For remote participants who would like to comment on an item on our agenda, we ask that you use the raise hand feature in Zoom during the discussion on that item. If you are joined by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Staff will then call on members of the public one at a time and give them permission to unmute themselves. If you are joined by phone, you will then be able to unmute yourself by pressing *6. Will people please introduce themselves?
Eric Flint, Division of Planning and Regulatory Services.
Maddie Vanderboom, Planning and Regulatory Services.
Devin Canton, Commissioner.
Stuart Kirshner, Commissioner.
Thank you. Are there any requests for continuances, postponements, or withdrawals?
Yes, we have 3 requests tonight. We have item number 569 Millbury Street. That's a request to postpone the public hearing to September 8th and extend the constructive grant deadline to September 30th. Item number 6, 17 Mill Street, also a request to postpone the public hearing to September 8th and extend the constructive grant deadline to September 30th. And then item number 7, lots 9, 10, 11, and 12 Chester Street, that's a request to postpone the public hearing until August 18th and extend the constructive grant deadline to September 9th.
Make a motion to postpone items 5, 6, and 7 as just described.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirshner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni? Aye. First item of new business, 283 Lake Avenue, request for determination of applicability. Somebody online?
Yeah, good evening. My name is Nick Cristofori from CEI, Comprehensive Environmental, and I'm here for this project on behalf of Mass DCR. So thank you for having me tonight. So I'm going to probably try and go relatively quickly because I think this project is pretty straightforward. But this project is on behalf of Project Shade, which is a DCR pilot project right now, which is currently looking at installing and upgrading additional shade features at right now 7 different parks across the Commonwealth. So real quickly, I will read Project Shade's vision statement, which is to create a network of resilient and shaded gathering places across the Commonwealth parks that provide safe, comfortable, and equitable outdoor spaces for all, especially vulnerable communities during extreme heat events. So this particular project, so if you look towards kind of the lower left of this project, we're looking at doing about 8 next generation shade trees, as well as a 20-foot by 20-foot sort of this team gathering shade canopy, which will be like a 4-posted canopy that park users can utilize, as well as an accessible pathway. And towards the top of the drawing is, this is actually the only part that is within jurisdictional areas. And this will be a 10-foot by 30-foot, actually two 10-foot by 30-foot canvas shade canopies that will be constructed over the existing bleachers that will help provide some shade to park users during these sporting events. And if you look at the photo in the upper left, this is what we expect these shade canopies to look like once they're constructed. We're looking at doing them probably in green or green or brown, most likely dark green, to kind of blend into the existing environment and be sort of consistent with DCR's greenish kind of color scheme. So that's the project that's within jurisdictional areas. We're not adding any impervious area. We'll be just kind of drilling into the substrate, the concrete to anchor these things. But that is the extent of this project within jurisdictional areas. We're within 100 feet of the lake, which is why I'm here tonight. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Staff?
No comments from staff.
Questions or comments from commissioners?
No, looks pretty straightforward.
Questions or comments from the public? Anybody here tonight or online? If you are on Zoom, you can use the raise your hand feature, or on the phone, it is *9 to raise your hand on the phone. Online? Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion for a negative determination?
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatoni? Aye. You are all set.
Thank you for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Next up, notice of intent, 238 Belmont Street, Bell Pond.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Nick Pagan from the City of Worcester Department of Sustainability and Resilience. So this NOI was originally submitted on April 15th, and now we are back for final approval after receiving our file number from DEP. So a little bit of information about this. Bell Pond generally has excellent water quality, but we have seen a few stands of the invasive plant Phragmites australis, which need to be addressed. We're looking to control this with hand cutting, as well as potentially the herbicide glyphosate if the growth persists. Because we weren't able to begin this cutting program at the proper time earlier this year, it's more likely that the herbicide will be necessary, but we are hoping to use hand cutting as much as possible. And that is what I have.
Staff comments?
No further comments from staff. We were really just waiting for a DEP file number before we could close the hearing, and we did receive that before this meeting.
And this is issued for a period of 5 years.
Yes, typically, lake management orders of conditions would be valid for 5 years. Yep.
Any questions or comments from commissioners?
None here?
Questions or comments from the public? Anyone here on the item? Raise your hand in the Zoom app if you're online, or *9 to raise your hand on the phone. Online? Okay. Is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatoni? Aye. Order of conditions?
So as mentioned, this order of conditions would be valid for 5 years as an ongoing aquatic management plan. This work would also be approved as an ecological restoration limited project pursuant to 310 CMR 10.534. In addition to the standard conditions, we would strike conditions 28 and 29. We would have additional conditions for monitoring, that regular inspections be conducted to assess the growth of the target plant species and overall pond conditions to guide management decisions. Post-management inspection shall be completed to assess the efficacy of the management efforts and any impacts on non-target species so that future applications can be properly adjusted to minimize non-target impacts. Annual monitoring reports documenting management efforts Observed conditions, management efficacy, and future recommendations shall be provided to the commission. Boat washing, boats and other equipment shall not be washed out in any resource area, the buffer zone, or into any drainage system. Adaptive management, should the applicant wish to incorporate any additional management techniques or target species not specifically identified in this notice of intent, a written request can be submitted to the commission detailing the newly proposed management techniques for their review and approval. We would strike conditions 45, 47, 59, and 60, and that would be it.
Any questions or concerns about the order of conditions from the applicant or commissioners?
Nope, I'm all set.
Make a motion to issue the orders of conditions as described.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni? Aye. You're all set, Nick.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Next item, 277 Providence Street, notice of intent.
Hi, all. Tom Schutz from Goddard Consulting, here on behalf of the applicant.
Matt Ashley with Bowler here on behalf of the applicant, Park Silver Development.
And at the last hearing, we submitted a replication plan for our project that would be impacting bordering vegetated wetlands in the center of the site. We have now submitted a fully comprehensive bordering vegetated wetland replication plan, which has been reviewed by Eric. That has plantings in it now, as well as a full procedure on how to create them. There's our planting scheme for everybody can see. We're going to be putting in pin oak, red maple, gray birch, pussy willow, high bush blueberry, and sweet pepper bush in both of them there. They're going to be directly adjacent to the northern retaining wall, and then the other one is going to be in the western portion of the site in that circular area. We also addressed some staff comments. Those were submitted on Thursday of last week. They were minor comments, in my opinion. One was just to discuss why this project would meet the criteria for a discretionary allowance for work within the 15 and 30-foot buffer zones to the BVW. And in general, the work would be, we're proposing new wetlands, so those areas would be directly adjacent to any of the proposed work. And then the wetland in the center is obviously going to be filled and then replicated at a 1.5 to 1 ratio. So we're going to have a net gain of BVW on the locust site. There were some minor plan changes as well. And finally, there was one question regarding the separation between the stormwater infiltration system and then also the proposed wetland in the western portion of the site. And our argument is that the infiltration system is actually going to be at a lower elevation than the wetland is because it's going to be perched using clay. So any of the infiltrated stormwater is not going to be actually impacting the wetland because it's going to be underneath it. So we shouldn't have any of that leach stormwater entering the proposed wetland system, which would then be filtering down gradient to the Blackstone River. So if you have any questions regarding our plan changes or any of the staff comments, we'd be happy to address them. But otherwise, we'd be looking to close tonight and have an order of conditions issued for the project.
Staff comments?
Yeah, I think that was a good summary of the comments that we issued a week or two ago. I think we would still like to see a little bit of refinement for the sequencing plan for construction, but that's something that we'd be willing to condition as a condition of approval that happened before the project gets started, just in terms of location of temporary sediment basins, how controls are going to be adjusted as grading is completed and slopes are stabilized. And kind of how water is diverted, which I think is probably our biggest concern just because of how much water sheet flows off the slopes to the north of the site and out of that stone culvert in the adjacent property. I guess one question we would have for the applicant is just regarding the timing of the construction of the wetland replication areas. I know the response mentioned that the plan would be to do that after the retaining walls are installed, which makes sense. but just curious where that fits into the overall scheme, or if that's also something that you would want to refine at a later date once you have a contractor on board to figure out the site.
Yeah, I think we would be okay with submitting a revised draft or revised plan at a later date with some kind of description on when the replication areas would be then constructed. But again, we would be wanting to kind of build them after the retaining walls are constructed, just because our wetlands are going to be directly adjacent to them, and we wouldn't want to be impacting our newly constructed wetlands with the building of the retaining walls. So at some point during the middle of the project, once those are created, we would then build our replication areas and plants. One note would that the plantings would have to be during either the spring or the fall growing season, so between April 15th and June 15th, or September 15th through October 31st. Those would be the two growing seasons, so we would want to plant there. We generally don't want to have a replication area dug, built, and constructed, and then the plantings not go in. So maybe that can be a special condition added, that they're planted during the growing season and not sequenced for having them dug, but then not planted for a while. That just leads to water standing in an open pit with no vegetation interior of it.
Yeah, I don't think we have any concerns about that. And I think it makes sense to wait until, obviously until the retaining walls are in, but, especially that western replication area, that's like also right near the construction entrance, so it probably makes sense to wait until things are a bit more stabilized before putting that in. But again, I think these are things that we could address once we can further refine the construction sequencing plan so that we have a sense of how things are going to play out. But aside from that, I think staff is all set, and we've gone back and forth on this one for quite a long time now, and feel that we're at a place where we're all on the same page. So happy to answer any questions the commission has.
Questions from the commissioners?
I don't.
My only question is, and this is just, if you could just give me a rough, description of the, how you're handling water on the site during the construction phase and where it is all going during the construction phase. There was a document that was uploaded just this morning that I didn't have a chance to read through. So if you could just step quickly through you don't have to tell me dimensionally what's going on, but during the course of the project, after you have excavated the wetlands, you are doing what next?
Sorry, can you rephrase the question? I just want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Just trying to understand, so if the wetland replication is not taking place till the retaining walls are built, and at the west side of the property, probably not till even much later, most likely.
Yep.
How is water on the site being handled during the various phases of construction while our wetlands are not functioning as wetlands?
I understand the question. Yeah, sorry. So we did work with planning and staff and conservation on both sides, coming up with this exact scenario. So, there is water that comes off the hillside. On the upper part of the site, there is groundwater fed into the replication area, and that's why we're locating them there. So we did come up with a plan on how to direct water coming from the site so it continues around and stays clean from going around. On the site, we have sized appropriately temporary sediment basins, and how we're going to phase that is, I think, what we still want to figure out once the construction team comes on board. But generally, on the right-hand side, we did create a temporary sediment basin to hold water appropriately, and then it would be slowly drained out through a series of either check dams, or if we have the pipe network online with appropriate erosion controls in there as well, it would slowly get out that way.
Okay, and then appropriate protection in the street just in case of a catastrophic event?
Absolutely. Anything that I could possibly get to, we would be happy to put in silt sacks or anything else. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the public on this project? Raise your hand on the Zoom app if you're online, or *9 if you're on the phone. No? Okay.
Make a motion to close?
Could you repeat that maybe, Stuart?
Make a motion to close?
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni, aye. Order of conditions?
So we would have a discretionary allowance issued under section 4.2.4 of the Worcester Wetlands Protection Regulations for activity in the 15-foot buffer and structure in the 30. We would have, prior to construction or prior to commencement of site work, a revised construction sequencing plan signed and stamped by a professional engineer shall be provided to the Office of the Commission for review and approval. Said plan shall include plan sheets depicting each phase of construction, such as slope creation, building, parking lot construction, wetland replication, and any associated erosion and sedimentation controls, locations and sizing of temporary sediment basins for each phase of construction, and a depiction of how clean water is going to be diverted around the site when soils are exposed. We'd have condition number 23 for a construction schedule, 31 for SWIP, 37 for stormwater system maintenance, 38 for infiltration unit inspection, 39 for certification of stormwater infrastructure. We'd have a condition that signage be installed adjacent to the wetland replication areas following their construction, which shall identify the presence of a wetland area that should not be disturbed. Said signage shall remain in perpetuity to prevent future encroachments, dumping, or disturbance of vegetation. Condition number 48 for dust control, 49 for dewatering, 50 for cement truck washing, 51 for equipment, material, and placement, that not be placed in the wetland replication area following its construction. We'd have 55 construction monitoring reports, and that those be prepared by a qualified individual independent of the site contractor with demonstrated professional experience in erosion and sedimentation control. The inspector shall have professional certification as a CESWE, CPESC, PE, PWS, or other qualifications deemed acceptable to the commission or its agents. Condition number 56 for spill prevention, 58 and 63 for wetland replication, 66 for sand and salt, 68 for wetland permitting, and that would be ongoing conditions, 37, 40, 48, 66, and 68.
Any questions? Comments from staff, from commissioners?
Yeah, just wondering if there's any clarification needed with regards to the signage for, at the wetland replication areas? Are you clear on the size and quantities? Is that?
Yeah, we could specify that further if the commission wants. You know, typically on a site, we'd have a little more of a gap between kind of a developed area and the wetland resource area, so we normally do those like 18 inches of granite post above ground and below ground, but this being kind of right adjacent to a parking lot, staff's intention in drafting this was to let the applicant come up with something that they thought would be appropriate for the site, just given that there's walls and parking spaces, and I think as far as staff is concerned, any form of signage, just like stating that there's a wetland resource area that shouldn't be disturbed would be sufficient, and we're happy to work with the applicant to make sure that that's acceptable at that time. But if there's specific things or types of signage the commission wants to see, we can certainly include that too.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there's no thought of needing 5 or 6 and the applicant's thinking, well, I gave you 1, and, you know, and have that be any sort of back and forth. So if the applicant's willing to give staff whatever is requested, and if they need another one, just think being flexible.
Yeah, I think we're more than happy to work with staff on coming up with some kind of signage plan.
Yeah.
Just rough guess, I would say probably 2 for that eastern one and maybe just 1 for the western one, or maybe 1 on 2 sides on that one as well. I don't think there would need to be a ton of signage just given the size of them, but just something to make sure that, you know, especially in the one on the corner, just make sure that people understand that that vegetation should be left alone.
Right. Anything else? Not, I'll make a motion to issue the orders of conditions as described.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatoni? Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next item, number 4, 10 Renfrew Street, 4 Inverness Avenue, 0 Inverness Avenue, notice of intent.
Hi, I'm James Tatro from Expedited Engineering, here representing GM Properties LLC. And at the Commission's last hearing, we had a few different items to address from the site plans. One of those was, as I sat there watching a hearing before ours, we had not put in a note on the plans, which is now on sheet ESC4, that the catch basins in both Inverness Ave and Renfrew Street have to have silt sacks in them during the entire construction process. That's there. We also now correctly labeled the drain sewer twin structures, I should say, excuse me, in Inverness Ave. A larger one was that we had shown very small, but yet increases to the flow direct into the streets, into both streets. And we went back and looked at, and it turned out we were still describing the area. If you look on any of the pick out, say, the northwest pair of units, the decks on the back, we were counting that within the area that we had. We were saying, okay, this is the area that's going to, from roof, that's going to be directed to infiltration. And actually, it's non-impervious surface going to the infiltration. We recategorized that, I think appropriately, as open space poor condition, which means you've got probably less than 50% grass cover, essentially under a deck. And we made a whole series of small changes to the grading at the front of, at the ends of the driveways, I guess I should say. And in fact, you see a note there in Inverness Ave that says, pointing to all the driveways there, and says that these driveways should all be graded such that flow does not go into the street. Just required a couple minor changes. And we also changed so that the that most northwesterly block of 2 units, that the runoff from their driveways doesn't go to the next driveway down, but goes through the side yard and into the backyard, which is easier to handle. We also made a change to, we had shown a sort of a drainage swale above the abutter Steinkraus, who's kind of at the extreme southwest corner of the property. He's just south of that, just below it. But we made it much more distinct. We sort of beefed it up, if you will, to show that, you know, it must be clear that flow should be cut off and not reach in, because essentially now almost no flow, almost no area drains to that abutter. So we really have to replicate the same condition. So we made those changes. One other issue out there is that there's at least a good chance, we couldn't pin it down. We contacted, somebody else in the project team contacted city staff who looked for, there's at least a chance that the abutter above the northwesterly units, if I say the name right, Bianculli, I'm probably butchering that, but that the structure on there has a sewer connection that runs in some way across Lot 1L, the most northwesterly lot. It doesn't, it's a little hard to see it, that it would be that case with the way the grading is there, because there's kind of a sharp drop-off from that abutter's property onto the applicant's property. But at least one abutter was there at the meeting and was really sure that she had seen that years ago. So we're going to have to, in some way, address it. I think we're going to have to find this in the field and address that. And we may end up putting a sewer manhole on the, I guess they say, the north side of units 1 and 2 to capture that line, that service line, and then direct it out to the street. Out of the street, the sewer there is actually very deep. It's just short of, actually, let's see, it's just over 10 feet deep, actually. So we probably have the ability to do a pretty painless connection, but until we start digging in that area, I don't know that we're going to find that line if it's still there. Now, I'm not casting doubt upon the recollection of the abutter. I'm wondering if maybe in the interim they made a different connection to that building. Maybe, I don't know, but anyways, that's a little bit of a wild card out there that we're going to have to deal with, and that was one of the things that came up at the last meeting. But the other issues, we added the silt sacks as we should have. We went back, reviewed the drainage, found that we're probably making it harder for ourselves than we had to by calling that deck an impervious surface that's being infiltrated when it's not. And making those changes and some grading changes, we're able to show that runoff from the driveways will not go into the street, and the drainage can work just the same, because we actually had a little less impervious cover than we were saying. I think we had just taken the maybe April version of the unit footprint, and we were continuing that on the drainage calculations when it had been revised since then. But I'll leave it at that, and I'll try and answer any questions that you may have.
Staff, questions or comments?
Yeah, we had a chance to review the revised plans and feel that our comments have been addressed at this time, so nothing further from staff.
Okay. Commissioners, questions, comments on the project?
Through you, Madam Chair, just curious about any explorations on pervious pavement and just what you found and...
That was actually, well, looking at, reviewing that, the drainage and how we were describing the areas, the next step I actually had on the screen, with the two screens going, the other screen was I was looking up the the paving blocks, as that was going to be the next alternative, and I was actually trying to figure out, gee, would we be able to do that on two of, say, those four to Inverness Ave? Would that make it work, et cetera? And I went back in the drainage and found that, again, actually, we were probably unnecessarily making it hard for ourselves. But that was going to be our next choice, was the paving blocks. See, I just had an experience of designing that somewhere else and had looked into it quite a bit. And I don't think you can really get the actual pervious pavement on that small of an area.
That's it. Any questions or comments from the public? If you are online, raise your hand on the Zoom app, or *9 if you are on the phone.
Make a motion to close?
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni? Aye. Order conditions?
So in addition to the standard conditions, we would have 37 for stormwater management system maintenance, 38 for infiltration unit inspection, 39 for certification of stormwater infrastructure, 48 for dust control, 49 for dewatering, 50 for cement truck washing, 56 for spill prevention, 66 for sand and salt, with ongoing conditions 37 and 66.
Any questions?
No, we have no objections.
Comments from staff? From commissioners?
No. Make a motion to issue the orders of conditions as described?
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni? Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Next item up, number 8, 465 and 467 Lake Avenue. Notice of intent.
Good evening, I'm Kate O'Donnell from Ecotech, here on behalf of the applicant Kathy Trainer. So this property is an existing developed property with two single-family houses. One is house number 465, and then the other is house number 467. Along the eastern property boundary, Lake Quinsigamond, the bank of Lake Quinsigamond is delineated with an A series flags. And the 100-foot buffer zone to that bank encompasses a large portion of the property. The activities that are proposed are at the 465 house number, which is the one closer to the street. The 467 one is closer to the lake. They're proposing an addition to the existing house. That would be a garage at the basement level and then 1 story above that. And then there would be a new paved driveway, retaining walls, a deck, and some grade changes. And then they would be proposing stormwater management, including a stormwater infiltration system and a dry well for the driveway runoff. The limit of work is about 50 feet from the bank of the lake, and then the structures are about 80 feet from the lake. And so all of that work is within existing developed areas, and we are proposing erosion control barriers around the limit of work. Also on the property is the 100-year floodplain to Lake Quinsigamond and the priority habitat associated with Lake Quinsigamond. And those are shown with the FP 100 line and the HAB line. And the entire limit of work is outside of those zones. So there's no work in bordering land subject to flooding or mapped habitat. If there's any questions that you guys have, I'm happy to go over those now.
Questions, comments from staff?
Yeah, so staff issued relatively minor comments, essentially requested that they extend the erosion controls, especially along that plan northern side of the plan, which has been addressed in the most recent revised plans. The Department of Public Works did issue some comments, so they do have some concern about the retaining wall within the right-of-way. So I think we'd be looking for a revised plan kind of addressing.
Yeah, so that is outside the buffer zone, so we were kind of hoping that that might be something that would just be addressed with planning.
Yep, so we can definitely condition that. Yep. And that's pretty much all from staff.
Okay. Questions, comments from commissioners?
For you, Madam Chair, can you talk a little bit about any plans for planting, any trees or?
Planting, I don't think any planting are proposed. You know, we're all in developed areas in lawn, so we're not cutting any trees down. I think it's mostly just landscaping plants that are being removed for the proposed activity.
Can staff put up an aerial of that site, please? Excuse me. So is there tree removal for the work for the addition?
Sorry, what was your question? Is there?
Tree removal? Underneath what appears to be the number 12 there looks like a tree. And is there tree removal proposed for the work?
All of the trees on the plan that I'm seeing are off property. So I don't see any proposed to be removed on this plan.
It does look like the plan shows an 8-inch maple just across the property line to the north,
Yeah.
which I'm assuming is the one that's visible right there.
So that's what you're seeing there.
Yeah.
Does that help? So you don't feel there's anything that would address the retaining wall problem wouldn't change any aspect of the project that's in the buffer zone?
I'm not sure, honestly. I think it would have to be just a slope, which I think would be just a change outside the buffer zone. It's a 3.6-foot wall, so it would just be grade changes. You could see that.
And you mentioned something about some type of swale or for driveway runoff. Could you?
Yep, so that's that dry wall right there. You see there's like a pipe connection to
Yep.
that dry well. So that would capture the runoff for the driveway because the grades don't allow the pitch of the driveway to go to the stormwater infiltration system. So that would just be a little bit extra for the driveway.
Any questions or comments from the public? Raise your hand on Zoom if you're online, or *9 if you're on the phone. Is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni, aye. Order of conditions?
So in addition to the standard conditions, staff recommends condition 25 for revised plans, addressing the comments from DPW with the retaining wall, 27 for test pit data, 37 for stormwater management system maintenance, 38 for infiltration unit inspection, number 49 for dewatering, 65 for fertilizer, and 68 for wetland permitting, and then ongoing conditions 37, 65, and 68.
Any questions? No? Questions, comments?
Make a motion to issue the orders of conditions as described.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni, aye.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Night. Next item, number 9, 100 Research Drive, notice of intent.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having us. My name's Robert Phillips. I'm with Langen Engineering on behalf of the applicant AbbVie, civil engineer on the project. And wanted to first start off by just giving a little background context of where the site is for those that are not familiar. Research Drive is right off of Route 9, Belmont Street, just west of Plantation Street. Clusters of developments there, most notably the hospital and UMass Medical Center adjacent to that. And the project is an internal or interior redevelopment. The site itself is about 30 acres, and the proposed project is encompassed within about just over 2 acres. The work area is shown in blue here, and this is existing space between the employee parking lot and the existing 4-story main building on the campus. The goal of the project is to, well, there's a few, but create additional amenity space for the existing employees, most notably cafeteria space and outdoor dining. Create additional storage space in the way of a warehouse, and then also create future expansion space, which I'll sort of talk about that in the next slide here. The reason why we're here is all of the developments outside of any resource areas, so we're here for the local ordinance only, as we're disturbing within 100 feet of the existing drainage infrastructure. The project, as described in detail in the stormwater report, meets the Mass Stormwater Standards and the local bylaw, including using the more conservative rainfall, the 90% upper confidence interval for the rainfall data. So a brief site rendering of how we're achieving those goals of amenity space, storage, and future expansion. Maybe I'll just kind of go clockwise from the top left here. Starting with the outdoor space, you can see 3 designated tiered outdoor dining spaces, again, to create more amenity space for the employees, and like a flex green space as well for activities that they might have on the campus. All of those areas are basically wrapped in robust plantings, which include, shrubs, deciduous trees, evergreens, and ornamental grasses, some for screening, some for aesthetics, and some for shade. As we go clockwise around the site, the space just to the left of the building creates the building cantilevers, and we'll see this in the next slide, over a pedestrian walkway. So that in turn creates, a designated pedestrian corridor for folks to go from the employee parking lot to the main employee entrance of the existing building. Continuing to the right, the sort of darker asphalt-looking area, that is a loading dock to support that storage space of the warehouse. Just to the right of that, we needed additional paved area to support the turning movements and access to the loading dock, but to meet the stormwater design standards, we have a couple of nice features right there. One being permeable pavers, again, to support those turning movements. And then where we don't need the turning movements, we have, it's labeled as green infrastructure here, but it's a rain garden or bioretention area with pre-treatment to sort out suspended solids and nutrients. Just in between the proposed building and the existing building, there's a couple of different paved areas. One of those is for emergency vehicle access, fire department access. So that's why you see some additional paving there. And then a flatter area as like flexible patio space, again, for any activities that they might do on campus. Now to the bottom left of the image, this is one of the, I guess, key points of the project, is relocating the portion of the existing circulation road, which would originally be going through that flexible outdoor space and fire department access, and shifting it to the left, connecting to the employee parking lot. And that achieves a few things. Most notably, it maintains the circulation patterns around the campus, but two, it also separates like back-of-house delivery trucks, more industrial activity, I guess, from passenger vehicles. So the loading dock area, that is in line with where the existing loading dock is for the building. So that's all like back-of-house operations, and then the relocated drive just separates out the passenger vehicle traffic. Rendering, architectural rendering here. The first floor is being serviced by that loading dock and would be warehouse space. The second floor is the cafeteria, and the third floor is core and shelf space for their future expansion goals. And you can see in the bottom rendering that cantilever, the second and third floors cantilevering over the pedestrian walkway to have that portion covered. And the materials here were chosen, one, to give you that nice glass facade and, you know, some views, and then also to match the existing building. So this is our grading and drainage plan that we've sort of highlighted the various stormwater infrastructure on site that we're proposing. Most of the drainage is picked up through a series of trench drains in areas that are not susceptible to vehicular loading. Areas where there is vehicular loading, you can see the trench drains in like the cyan color. Areas of vehicular loading, the drainage is picked up by what's shown in pink there. Those are deep sump catch basins, which are fed into mechanical separators. Those are shown in green. Most of the drainage is fed to an infiltration practice. So the roof area is fed into the purple subsurface infiltration system to the plan north here. Areas of drainage, vehicular drainage over to the plan west are fed into that other purple area, and some of the trench drains are fed there as well. So those are pretty sizable concrete leaching chambers that are designed for both detention and infiltration. So we're meeting a lot of our recharge and attenuation there. I already talked about the area in blue, the rain garden, and then also the area shown in orange, permeable pavers. So we're also getting infiltration there. So as detailed in the stormwater report and just briefly discussed here, you know, the design really achieves you know, attenuation of our peak flow rates. I have just a summary table here comparing the existing conditions to our proposed conditions. What you see in green is the delta. So in this case, negative is good in the sense that we're letting out less flow to downstream receptors, which there are a few of. And things to, you know, point out here in the, you know, less severe but more regular storms, like the 2-year and 10-year storms, you see pretty heavy reductions, you know, numbers like 41%, 25% reduction. And then, in some of the larger storms, like the 100-year storm, still seeing those large reductions in several of the design points. In addition to attenuating the peak flow rates, we're meeting our groundwater recharge, suspended solids removal, whether it's through those proprietary separators, the mechanical separators, or through pretreatment and infiltration with the rain gardens. And in addition, our water quality volume, our infiltration volume, we conservatively size that. The site isn't designated as a high pollutant loader, but we modeled it as such just because we know, it's in an industrial zone. They do have the loading operations. The trips don't necessarily govern that, but we modeled it that way to be conservative and we meet that volume. I guess, and with that, before we wrap up here and take any questions, we did receive staff comments from both your office and from DPW, and we do have comments prepared for those. I haven't printed out, which I could give you. It's our opinion that the comments were very, very minor. From your office, it was extending erosion control limits, which we've done and updated on our plans. And then there was a comment about basically providing a bit more information on the bioretention soil mix, which we have in our updated drawings. There was also a comment on asking for a bit more information on the plantings proposed in the rain garden. And so we did have a bioretention mix on the planting plan details. So we've just sort of highlighted that and provided a bit more information. We've used that meadow mix in rain gardens. It's all native species that do well in wet conditions. Relative to the comments from DPW, it's using some standard details from the city and preferences on pipe materials, a few other minor things which we've clarified. So based on that, I guess we'd like to ask for conditional approval upon satisfactorily addressing these comments.
Staff comments, questions?
Yeah, I guess I'll just start with a question on the rain garden. So I think the question regarding the planting was more about just incorporating other strata into that, so like shrubs and trees, if feasible, in addition to the herbaceous wet mix. Would the applicant be amenable to incorporating at least shrubs into that planting design?
Yeah, sure. We can definitely do that.
Okay. Aside from that, we don't really have too much. We only had a couple comments, and the DPW comments were all pretty minor and related to utilities for the most part. Overall, seemed like a pretty strong stormwater management plan. Always glad to see green infrastructure included in designs. So don't really have anything else at this point.
Questions, comments from commissioners?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Over at the loading dock area, can you just talk a little bit about how you're dealing with any water that goes down into that slope?
Yeah, sure. I think it's maybe 3 slides after the thank you slide. Sorry to put you on the spot, Matt. But yeah, you're correct. So the one with the blue outlines. There we go. Yeah. So this shows the drainage areas for the various catchments on the site. And to your point, the loading dock is graded down and away from the building, and that all sheets. So that's coming down and basically hits like a gutter line on the existing road, and that is fed into the rain garden. So before water enters the rain garden, that's also pushed through basically a separation unit, a rain guardian, which provides pre-treatment prior to the stormwater entering the rain garden. And the whole goal there is to knock down some of the suspended solids so it doesn't clog up the soil media, so we can get the design infiltration rate.
So walk me through this. So the rain garden south of the loading dock drive, the elevation's at 570. The building is at 561, so I'm guessing it's a walkout from there. And do you have a
Yeah, so the
rising wall?
building,
Yep.
the way that the building lines up with the loading dock is the loading dock is much higher than the first floor elevation. So we'd have to look at the architectural plans, which I don't have here, but basically you come in and there's an elevator.
Yep, yeah, that's fine.
So you do get the pitch from the loading dock down to the rain garden.
Got it. Okay, as long as that's clear and it's working.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
So I have a question about the stormwater report that references pre-existing closed drainage systems on the property. Can you tell me where they are, how they're connected, what they are, and how dependent this expansion is on those?
Yeah, sure. So if you maybe back one more, if you don't mind. And this is a bit tough to see, but the pinkish labels are our design points or what we've analyzed, and those are all, with the exception of the one to the far left, which is Route 9. Those are all pieces of the existing infrastructure. So from the bottom left, there's an existing grass swale. Up one more, there's a sort of a junction or an existing manhole, which is at the edge of our development. Similarly, the one in the top right. And so we chose those as design points because the site doesn't have any stormwater issues currently. And as I showed in the peak rates table, we're significantly knocking down the flow rates and volumes to those areas.
So maybe I missed something. It's a closed system because?
Well, closed drainage in the sense that it's a existing pipe network, existing catch basins and pipes on the site.
So the existing catch basins and pipes don't drain or overflow to any surface or to any city basin or?
We wouldn't be altering that. We wouldn't be altering the existing condition. What we're doing is within the footprint of our development, saying, hey, we're not going to push off any additional water or at increased rates such that the existing conditions will either be maintained or there'll be less flow. So it wouldn't increase, we wouldn't be increasing flow rates to downstream receptors.
Okay. But there have been issues with downstream flow from the site to the lake through the storm system.
I'm personally unaware of those issues, but the development, as I showed, reduces the flow rates to those areas. So if anything, the project is a betterment relative to the existing conditions.
And who maintains the property? Once this is built, who maintains the grounds, landscaping?
AbbVie, the owner.
The owner does. I assume they contract it out, or it's their own employees? And the reason I ask is some of the landscaping features on the property that are not part of this project. A lot of mulch, not a lot of plantings, just sort of, I would call it a bit of lazy landscaping.
We tried to do the opposite of lazy.
Well, I see
yeah.
that. I see that, you've got trees.
So to your point about operation and maintenance, as part of the stormwater report, we of course had a long-term O&M plan. And, I think, the plantings around the amenity space, again, this is them wanting to create amenities for their employees, and the landscaping's integral to that, whether it be shading or screening. So, yeah, I would say that it's in their best interest to maintain the
I
upkeep.
agree. I would just, I guess, would understand the commitment to keep the landscaping in the condition you're proposing to put it, and not allow the drainage swale of the rain garden to become a mowed grass hollow in the ground. I don't know how much we can condition the future state of the site.
Well, we do have the O&M plan, which is.
For the rain garden, at least, that would be stormwater infrastructure that we'd have an ongoing condition for maintenance for. The rest of the landscaping across the other parts of the site, we wouldn't really have long-term authority over, but the rain garden for sure would be.
So this is just maybe more a question to you. So if your stormwater calculations are based on a particular quality of ground and coverage, and that deteriorates for lack of good landscaping practices. Couldn't that well be part of the conditioning of a stormwater management system?
Were proposed conditions modeled as, were they just grass good?
Just
or-
grass, yeah, we didn't take, for example, where trees are planted or shrubs, it's not modeled in our hydrologic model as, say, forested lands. It uses a runoff coefficient that's consistent with like grass, basically.
Grass?
Yeah.
And how does that compare to mulch?
The mulch wouldn't necessarily kick down, or I guess kick up the runoff coefficient. You'd still get infiltration. I think that's more of an aesthetic thing. It would be different if it was, say, like a permeable paver or gravel, but
Okay.
the intent is definitely to keep the landscaped areas as landscaping.
And the permeable pavers, are those, is it the type of paver that requires regular vacuuming? Or are these like separated with soil exposed between? Do you have a diagram of the pavers or
I do
detail?
not have a diagram of the pavers, but those are also in the operation and maintenance plan. It would be regularly upkept in the same way as the other infrastructure.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions. Questions or comments from the public? Raise your hand on Zoom if you're online, or star 9 if you're on the phone. No?
Make a motion to close?
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni, aye. Order conditions?
So in addition to the standard conditions, we'd be looking for revised plans that incorporate shrubs into the planting plan for the rain garden and address DPW comments. We would want condition number 31 for SWIP, 37 for stormwater system maintenance, 38 for infiltration unit inspection, 39 for certification of stormwater infrastructure, 40 for bioretention basin vegetation, which relates back to ongoing maintenance of that. Condition number 48 for dust control, 49 for dewatering, 50 for cement truck washing, 55 for construction monitoring reports, 56 for spill prevention, 66 for sand and salt with ongoing conditions 37, 66, and 40.
Any questions?
Make a motion to issue the orders of conditions as described?
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni, aye.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
You too. Next item, new business, abbreviated notice for resource area delineation. Item number 10, 31 Randolph Road.
Hello, Mary Ann DePinto, Three Oaks Environmental, for the applicant for this, for the ANRAD.
All right. You're all set. We can hear you. If you want to walk us through it.
Oh, sure. Well, the commission, it's a very challenging site. It's very large, multiple wetland areas, and I've been delineating it for the past, off and on for the past 3 years. In any event, I went back this year to refresh the flagging and have it match this plan. Conservation Commission had, the agents had comments that they issued recently, and there we go. I did address those comments today by going out in the field. In number one, there is an additional wetland pocket that is upgradient. It periodically overflows down a slope. It wasn't visible because of the leaves, but there's definitely some rocky area down that slope that flows into the G-series wetland. So I hung H-series wetland flags on it today, H1 through H10, with H6 connecting to flag G2 and H7 connecting to flag G1. That'll all appear on the plan in order to address the commission's concerns. The second comment was to connect the D and F series wetlands, which you see on the right on the screen, with the C series wetlands. And I did note that in the field when I was out there, but I didn't want to change the plan and change the flagging before the commission had a chance to review the current plan. But I am going to be telling the surveyor that he needs to connect flag D1 to flag C31 and flag F14 to flag C30. So that will appear on the revised plan. The third area is I had made a comment to the surveyor because there was water and I didn't wear the appropriate footwear and I said, follow the slope from G28 to G1. Today I went out there and I hung flags G29 through G33, which then connects back to G1. So that will be better defined instead of a straight line. The fourth comment regarding flags D16, 17, and 18, they didn't appear on the plan. They are present in the field. So again, I'm going to ask the surveyor to incorporate those flags on the revised plan. And the fifth comment is to have the plan stamped by a professional land surveyor. So that's the additional request that I'll have for him. The D-series wetland flagging in number 4 there happens to be an old detention pond. There's an outlet structure in there. I suspect it was approved a long time ago and doesn't qualify for the stormwater basin exemption, but that's that's it in summary. We do need to submit a revised plan, so I will be requesting a continuance to the next meeting in August.
Any comments or discussions for tonight?
Yep, so just a reminder, so this filing is just for approval of the wetland delineation itself. There's no work proposed within this filing itself. It's just confirming the wetland boundaries. So staff did visit the site over multiple days and reviewed the wetland boundaries, and all these comments have just been reviewed. So Mr. Pinto's got to work with the surveyor to revise the plans, update the plans, and get them over to us by our next meeting. So there's no real concerns with staff at this time other than these comments. It is a difficult site to get through, if we're being honest, but overall, we were pretty happy with the way the site was delineated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Down here.
Questions or comments from the public?
Just come up and
You come
state
up
your
to the
name,
microphone
please.
and just name and where you live.
My name is Cheryl Mina, and I live at 30 Randolph Road. I reviewed the environmentalist, Three Oaks Environmental, the report they gave, and it was mentioned there was no evidence of any vernal pool species. However, the neighborhood, the last time there was a question of this area being developed, we had our own environmentalists come in, EBT Environmental Consultants, and they did find a vernal pool, and they actually sent the documentation for certification. So I'm not sure, that was a while ago, if that changes, but it was just a little bit of a concern, and does that affect what they delineated as wetlands?
Okay. Do you guys aware of any filings? Do you know about how long ago?
It was, I have the report right here. It was October 6, 2003, so it was a while ago.
2003?
Yes.
Okay.
And I got this all from your office.
Yep.
They were great there.
Yep.
So I'm just pulling up Mass Mapper now to see if that was a certified vernal pool. I don't recall seeing that, but I can check. And again, tonight here, we're just looking to confirm the boundaries of bordering vegetated wetland. We wouldn't be confirming or denying the presence of a vernal pool.
And additionally, it is already being continued till next month anyway, so it gives us a little
Yeah, that's
time
good.
to,
Also, if you're going to do another walkthrough, would the neighborhood be able to do that with you guys? Any of the neighbors, or no?
So at this time, we're not planning to do another walkthrough. If there was a site visit and if it was made open to the public, it would be at the property owner's discretion. But again, I think, we've already gone through the site a number of times and would prefer not to go back there again if we can, to be honest. So no, we're not anticipating scheduling a public site walk with the commission at this time.
Okay. If that changes, would you let us know?
Sure, if you reach out to our office and just give us your contact info, we can let you know. But again,
Okay.
that's not currently in the plans.
Great, thank you.
yep, come on up.
I hope it's helpful.
Yeah.
I'm Jim Evans. I own the property at 15 Randolph Road. I was born at 134 Burgo Street in 1952, and I have 5 brothers and sisters. We used to go into what we called the field, and one of the features that was there was a frog pond that we called it. It had tadpoles, it had the cat o' nine tails. I think that was what you would consider a vernal pool. It has since dried up for many, many decades. But at that point, perhaps in the late 1950s, there was a vernal pool there. I've seen it with my own 4 eyes. I had to at the time. But just if that's helpful, as to the issue of the wetlands there.
Okay.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
George Evans, 14 Randolph Road, and I'm related to the prior gentleman. And in the regard of the pool or pond that James had mentioned, is this part of a flood plain designated by USGS or not?
Is it the question?
That's my
I don't believe it is. We can do a quick check.
Yeah, there's no mapped 100-year floodplain on the property.
There's no map?
There's no mapped 100-year floodplain on the property. So it's not included on FEMA's flood insurance rate map.
I see. And also, I have a question on the fill, I guess you would call it, or mounds as they are classified. Approximately 450 by 250 by 70 feet high, which is significant. And my question, I guess, to the board is, when were those put into place on that land? And what might be the determination in that regard of its use and any complications in the process of that use?
So I guess we can also defer to the applicant in a minute here, but for the purposes of the hearing tonight, all we're doing is reviewing the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. So the focus of the commission's review is limited to determining if the bordering vegetated wetland boundaries that were delineated by the applicant's wetland scientist are accurate. So at this time, we're not looking into soil contamination or history or anything like that. If at some point the applicant comes back with a plan to develop the site, that's when we would be looking at questions about contamination and how soils are going to be moved, and anything related to earth moving would come up at that time. So right now, our focus and review is strictly on the boundaries of the resource area as it's defined in the Wetlands Protection Act.
Thank you for that edification. However, I note that the wetlands have changed since that new structure has been put in place. That is, they cause for the ephemeral streams traveling from that Clearview road boundary, which is the southern boundary, and it's altered the flow of the wetlands, which I think might have been a consideration back 20 years ago, and is certainly another consideration now at this time.
Apologies, I guess I misunderstood your question. I thought you were just referring to the site in general. Would you be able to like point on the screen in the area you're referring to?
Yes, I can.
Okay, you can take the mic up with you and.
No, I won't. These are the mounds that I referred to, 450 by 250 by 74.
Sorry, sir, could you bring the microphone up so that the people who are online can hear you? Thank you.
These are the mounds that I have referred to, 450 by 250 by 70 foot high. And the ephemeral streams from Clearview have been altered, as you can see here, measurably. And they feed this wetland in this area, which traverses this direction. So those are my concerns, which haven't been answered since 22 years ago. And I would like the board to be in the least aware of them and to be able to further discuss the concerns of each and all or at this attendance tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So I'm making a note for ourselves in the next weeks prior to the next hearing to look into both the vernal pools and any changes in topography in recent years.
So there was a previous filing on this property. Is that the 20-year time span sound right?
Yeah, I think it was 2003 that the last plans were submitted. Those plans really only showed a wetland up in what's currently flagged as the A series, kind of on the, yeah, thanks, Maddie. And there was, I believe, a peer review at the time, as the applicants mentioned, or the abutters mentioned, there was EBT Environmental was involved peer reviewing the delineation that had been done at the time. I believe that application was ultimately withdrawn based on findings of additional wetlands that weren't flagged on those plans. But we did look at those old files in reviewing this. We can review them further and take a closer look at the topography as well.
Okay.
And I don't know, Ms. DePinto, if you want to add anything in response to anything that's been said by the abutters or have any clarification on the site's history?
She's still online?
I had to mute myself. I was coughing. So I don't know anything about the mounds and if any fill that was placed, may have been placed on the site off Clearview some 20 years ago. Everything that I walked through out there was well vegetated, except some of the area around the little pond. That has well, it doesn't have very much water in it, but yeah, that area there where there's some little lean-to type structures placed out there and some ditches that were dug. I met a neighbor that was out there and he said he wanted to plant some things there because it was good soil. So there's been some alterations to the site in that manner since I've been out there.
Any comments or concerns?
No additional comments or concerns?
We'd be looking for, I guess, a continuation to the next meeting on August 18th. Is that correct with the applicant?
Yes. Yes, that's correct.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatoni? Aye. We'll talk to you next month.
All right, thank you so much for your time. Bye now.
Thank you. Next item, new business request for amended order of conditions, 0 Whippoorwill Drive, 0 Daniels Way, AKA Malden Woods subdivision.
Good evening. For the record, Mark Bornstein, I'm an attorney at the law firm of Prince LaBelle here in Worcester, representing the applicant, Whipper LLC. Before you this evening is an application to amend the existing order of conditions relating to the existing subdivision known as Malden Woods. As provided in the materials submitted in connection with the application, the change of scope of work is pretty minimal in that we're proposing a reduction in the impervious surfaces associated with the travelway of Whippoorwill Drive. The width is being decreased from 28 feet to 24 feet, which will provide a reduction in impervious surfaces of 2,304 square feet. The applicant's also proposing to add a couple additional catch basins, which will overall improve the stormwater management associated with Whippoorwill Drive. Included in materials, we also requested 2 modifications to the existing conditions. In discussions with staff, I think the commission may be evaluating other modifications of the conditions, but just to highlight our particular requests, we're requesting modifications to condition 45 in the existing order of conditions. That would allow for 5 foundations to be open at any given time instead of the existing 3 foundations. We're also asking a modification to condition 55, which pertains to turbidity monitoring. Obviously, the applicant is going to continue with SWIP reporting as required, but we're asking for a removal of the existing turbidity monitoring. In addition, in discussions with staff, there was the discussion about a reduction in the replication area shown on the plans, given that we're reducing the width of Whippoorwill Drive and the wetlands crossing. As a result, the replication area has been reduced from 347 square feet to 41 square feet. So the applicant intends to, as they're installing the footings, to take some of the organic matter from that footings area and then add it to the replication area. I believe joining me this evening also is Jack Thomas, who's a representative of the ownership, and also Julian Vitroba of New England Environmental Design. So if there's any questions that the commission may have, and I can't answer, I'll turn it over to them. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff?
Yeah, so we've had a few different conversations with the applicant and project team over the past year or so about these changes. Ultimately, what's proposed to be changed from the approved plans is good from a Conservation Commission perspective, and that wetland resource area impacts are decreasing, and the crossing itself is narrower than what was originally approved. So there was originally, I think, 60 square feet of BVW impact proposed. That scour pool that's shown on the screen now had previously been designed to discharge directly into the bed of the intermittent stream, and that's now shown to be just outside the limit of bank. So avoiding resource area alteration there. There is still a portion of fill that you can see in kind of the upper, it's like a little triangle. There's just a depression right outside the limits of the street that kind of dips down into a wetland. And so that portion is still proposed to be filled. But the wetland replication area that was previously approved was significantly larger than it had to be. Like Mark said, it was about 350 square feet previously, and now it's down to 41, but again, there was only 60 square feet of wetland impact proposed in the first iteration of these plans, which is now down to 27, and staff is actually in support of the reduction in size of the wetland replication area, because to get where they wanted to do the replication previously, it would have involved removal of a number of mature trees right adjacent to the bank and right up against the edge of the BVW. So by modifying this depressed area immediately adjacent to the street, that will result in less mature, removal of less mature vegetation to get to the previously proposed site. We have had discussions about the conditions that the applicant seeks to modify. We can obviously talk about conditions after the close of the public hearing, but in principle, we didn't have any objections to what the applicant was looking for. Rather than modify individual conditions, we're just going to propose kind of a new set of conditions as if we were just issuing a new order. It still maintains the same requirements that were included in the first order of conditions, but I think kind of clarifies and makes things a little more concise with some of the language that we've adopted since this order was initially issued back in 2019. We did have some staff comments that we issued in response to the amendment request, and we did receive responses to those and revised plans addressing those. So I guess at this point, I would turn it back to the commission. Happy to answer any questions that you have for staff.
Commissioners, questions, concerns? Okay. I have a sort of an orientation question, so I don't know if you can answer it or maybe the staff can answer it. So the area where the abutter is perhaps parking across the way, which is adjacent to the wetland there, that section's getting redeveloped as street, correct? So that turnoff, or however it's being used currently, will no longer be available. Ultimately, what would protect that new wetland from incursion by the neighbors? Goodwill?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just gonna walk up a little bit here and point to the screen, but basically the street is proposed to come to here, and then this is sidewalk, and then there's this like 13 feet of grass strip. So I guess, I mean, it's not the neighbor's property. I guess, I don't know, any change of that and conversion to like pavement or gravel would need approval at that point, because it would be.
Would the applicant possibly consider putting in some type of I would say guardrail structure? I'm not thinking highway type guardrail, but something, I mean, normally we would sort of define the wetland so that people understood that this isn't just another piece of grass, but, you know, right beyond it is an area we don't want to fill or disturb, so that it's clear to anyone going down the street that this is something different.
We could add like 2 permanent markers like we have for the rest of the site.
I'm not sure what the right answer is, but, you know, where it's already being sort of required, I wouldn't want it to become sort of like an entitlement type space where I always used it, therefore I should still be able to use it.
I think it would be, I don't know, I think it would probably be difficult to do something like that, just because you would have the sidewalk and street in between that house and the new location, because the area you're referring to is like right here, basically, and that house is up here. That seems to be using that currently.
So there's no concern then that this new wetland is exposed in any way?
I mean, the road is going to be moving closer to it than it is currently. It is pretty exposed right now. It's basically just grass that leads to a pretty quick drop off. If the commission wants to see some sort of signage or something, I think that's reasonable.
mean, it seems like the developer's done a good job of protecting the wetlands during the construction phase, and I just wouldn't want to see anything deteriorate post-construction.
I guess any encroachment on that beyond this project would just become a violation. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have anything additional. Is there anyone online with questions or comments? No? Okay. Motion to close? We need to close.
We need to close.
Yeah, motion to close.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirchner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni? Aye. Amended order of conditions.
So as mentioned before, we're just going to kind of do a new suite of conditions here that follows the same general requirements of the first order. So first, we'd be issuing a discretionary allowance under section 4.2.4 of the Worcester Wetlands Protection Regulations for activity within the 15-foot buffer zone and structure within the 30. We would have condition 23 for construction schedule, 24 for wetland flagging, 31 for SWIP, 36 for performance security, replacing the first paragraph with the stabilization of the site and construction and maintenance of the replication area shall be secured as described in the performance agreement recorded in the Worcester County Registry of Deeds, book 66724, page 245, and that's essentially just the original performance agreement that was required by the order of conditions in its final form. We have stormwater system maintenance, condition number 37, 38 for infiltration unit inspection, certification of stormwater infrastructure for each lot prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. Prior to the installation of the crossing, an electronic to scale structural plan set for the culvert walls and footings stamped by a professional engineer shall be provided to the Office of the Commission. Work sequencing, the southern basin and all associated drainage pipes, inverts, and outlets shall be constructed as designed prior to the commencement of construction of the roadway and house lots north of Whippoorwill Drive, and then the northern basin and all associated drainage piping, inverts, and outlets shall be constructed as designed prior to the construction of lots 7 through 10. For phasing and lot opening restrictions, we would have a maximum of 5 duplex lots, so where lots 1 and A and 1B would be considered one lot. Only 5 of those open at one time, open meaning ground disturbance, vegetation removal. Permanent markers, adjusting the original condition with our current language and also spacing those out every 25 feet on center instead of every 15 feet. Condition 46 for wood removal, 48 for dust control, 49 for dewatering, 50 for cement truck washing, 51 for equipment, material, and placement, that not be placed within wetland areas with the exception of the work to install the wetland crossing and construct the wetland replication area. We'd have 55 for construction monitoring reports, 56 for spill prevention, 57 for culverts, 58 and 63 for wetland replication. 65 for fertilizer, 66 for sand and salt, 67 for snow storage, 68 for wetland permitting. Those would be ongoing conditions, 37, 44, 65, and 68. And again, these conditions really just kind of reflect what is currently required under the order of conditions with the exception of the changes that we've discussed tonight.
Okay. Any questions?
Motion to issue the orders of conditions as described?
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirchner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, other business, emergency certificate, 7 Hemlock Street.
Yep, so last week, staff received a call of a hazard tree within the buffer zone of Coe's Pond. So they requested that staff come out and review the site. So I did go out and check the site. So essentially what happened was a multi-stem oak split, one half falling towards Coe's Pond, the other half still standing, but kind of leaning towards the neighbor's house. So I took a look at the tree. looking inside, it is a bit rotted, so I issued an emergency certificate for them to remove the tree. That tree was removed last Thursday. They are leaving the stump in place, and the part that did fall towards Coe's Pond is going to be left in place. They just kind of cleaned up the stump, basically, by making a nice clean surface instead of that jagged mess that you see in that first photo. So I guess we would be looking for a motion to ratify the emergency certificate.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatoni? Aye. 13, request for certificate of compliance.
So it appears the engineer is online, but this was for a wetland protection ordinance only project. It involved constructing multiple townhouse-style buildings. So it was permitted back in 2020. The site is fully stabilized at this point. Staff conducted a site visit on July 18th to confirm that the site is stabilized. An as-built plan has been provided, along with a letter from a professional engineer certifying that the property was constructed according to the approved plans. And they're looking for a full certificate of compliance.
Motion for a certificate of compliance for 48 to 60 Bridges Street.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatoni? Aye.
All right, next up, we have 11 Snowberry Circle. So it's another request for a certificate of compliance. This one's for a partial certificate of compliance. It's property located within the Arboretum subdivision. So an as-built plan has been provided. This is within kind of a more recently active construction site of the Arboretum subdivision. The property owner is looking to sell the house and kind of wanted to clear up the deed before selling the property. Staff conducted a site visit back in June. Everything is stabilized, and we do have that as-built plan confirming that the house was constructed according to the approved plan. So we're looking for a partial certificate of compliance.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Fatoni? Aye. Any updates on enforcement orders?
Nothing new from staff this week.
Active projects.
Do we have online for this?
Didn't see anyone.
Okay, so it doesn't look like we have the applicant online, so I'll just try to give a quick overview of it. We think it's a pretty simple request. There's an existing order of conditions for the ongoing aquatic management of Cook's Pond, which involves both physical and chemical removals of invasive species. One of the removal methods noted in the notice of intent included hand pulling, typically after as follow-ups to herbicide treatment. That was specifically requested for fanwort and water chestnut. The applicant is basically just looking to use hand removal by boat for yellow floating heart, which is an invasive lily species. Staff doesn't have any concern with this request. We did recently speak to DEP about kind of adjusting aquatic management orders of conditions throughout the life of the order, and DEP was of the opinion that it's not necessary to formally amend an order just for change in target species when you're talking about a management method that was approved under the original notice of intent. So at this point, the applicant's just looking to be able to remove this by hand, and yeah, again, we don't have any concern on staff's end.
So is this a formal approval process or just more a communication?
It is a project change request is how it was submitted, which is on our list of applications. It is a relatively informal approval. It's basically getting the commission's affirmation that the work that's being proposed is in line with the order of conditions, even if it's not how it was originally presented. So it's a modification to the project, but basically a de minimis change that doesn't require any sort of formal amendment.
Does it require a vote?
It does require a vote.
So
it'll be-
moved.
There we go.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Did we get a second from Commissioner
Second.
Kirschner? Second, thank you. Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni? Aye. Open space?
We did receive city council approval for the Community Preservation Act funding for the Brooks Dairy Farm project. So that's another step completed for that one. We're going to be doing a site visit with EEA on Wednesday to review that site. Wednesday.
The site visits with who?
EEA, the state, the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the, for the land grant application that we also have for
Okay.
that program.
When's that walkthrough?
Just a site walk with staff person from EEA.
Anything you need from us in support of this ongoing effort to?
So far, so good. If you'd like to join the site visit, you're welcome to do that. It's at 3:30 on Wednesday. 3:30 on Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay. Communications, MassDOT?
Yep, so essentially, we received a notification that MassDOT was going to do some tree trimming around 939 Southbridge Street. Staff reviewed the site, confirmed that there were no resource areas within the area of work, and gave them approval to continue with their tree removal.
There's another one in the file. Army Corps of Engineers, just a,
Yeah, just a general notice of training sessions and whatnot.
got it. All right. Are any minutes ready for?
Yep, so the May 19th minutes were ready for review.
Make a motion to approve the May 19th meeting minutes?
Second.
Commissioner Canton?
Aye.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Aye.
Commissioner Frattoni? Aye. Anything else?
Just under policies and procedures, before the next meeting on August 18th, emergency management will be here to take photos for ID badges for commissioners as part of the security updates to City Hall. The city is going to give ID badges to commissioners, so if you want to get here a little early next meeting, they'll be able to take your picture. If you're not able to attend the meeting, you can also just send us an electronic photo of yourself in front of a light background in kind of a neutral, typical ID type photo, and that will also be sufficient. But that'll just in terms of getting through security quicker. I know it's not typically lots of people here after 5 o'clock for these meetings, but it'll give you kind of like staff entrance to the building during those times.
Right, and make sure Commissioner Nystrom knows.
Yes,
As
we
well.
will reach out to her.
Okay, so she's ready.
Try to include that in our email next meeting to remind everybody that that's happening.
Okay.
Yeah. I
anything
also
else?
just want to add that our next meeting will also be in the other.
As there'll be training in
building.
here.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, so it'll be in the Holland Esther chamber.
Got it, with the big seats.
Yep.
Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Aye.